Just going to look at some facts and some fables pertaining to suicide. This is some of Snyderman's work again. It says people who talk about suicide don't complete suicide, and the answer to that is that every 10 people that gives, of every 10 persons who take their lives, 8 have given some definite warning about their suicidal intention. So that's 80% of the people. 80% of those 2,500 and so odd people have reached out to some significant other or to an organisation and given some warning. I can tell you that they haven't overtly said, come up to another individual and said to them, hey, I'm suicidal, I'm going to take my life. But they've said other things that gives some sort of a warning to individuals, and we'll cover that a little bit later on. So it's 80%. It's a large amount of, a high proportion. Suicide happens without warning. Studies reveal that the suicidal person gives many clues and warnings regarding their suicidal intentions. Suicidal people are fully intent on dying. Most suicidal people are undecided about living or dying, and they gamble with death, leaving it for others. Almost no one completed suicide without letting others know how they are feeling. Talking about suicide might give somebody the idea, and the studies prove that bringing up the issue of suicide with a suicidal person and talking openly about suicide is one of the most helpful things that you can do, and it shows concern that you are willing to listen. People want other people to hear and to feel the pain that they're going through, but they won't overtly share that, because I tend to think that our culture is not geared. We don't want to be intrusive into other people, so we don't ask people questions. And if we sense that something's wrong, yeah, it'll blow over, or we hear a statement, we'll just let it go. But we don't want to challenge that. I remember when I was at Nambour heading the Teen Challenge organisation, I was working in an office there, and I remember a phone call specifically from a middle-aged woman who told me about what she was going through, and she'd just been separated from her husband, lost a job, and was about to lose the family home, all those sort of things. And my training led me to ask a question, and the question was something like this: life sounds pretty tough for you at the moment. You seem to be struggling with a lot of issues. Have you ever thought of ending it all? Have you ever thought of suicide? So the question was directly in relation to suicide, to which I felt that I sensed about a 10-second pause on the phone and a big sigh of breath. And the lady then responded to me. She says, well, the very reason why I've rang you is, yes, I am feeling very suicidal and I don't know what to do about it. By asking the question, what did that do? Gave her the opportunity. Yep. And the other thing was that there was a whole release there, that somebody else knows this big dark secret that I've been carrying around in my life for the last 3 months or 4 months, that's really dragging me down. And unless we're perceptive enough to pick up and ask that question, a lot of people think that, that we might give somebody the idea. Research indicates that you don't give anybody the idea. I've had in my youth worker practice many years ago, I would ask that question quite regularly amongst young people. And with standby, when I go to a family that's lost a loved one to suicide, I will never leave that place without asking the question of that family, because I know that family, being traumatised, can even be a potential candidate to suicidality, wanting to be with the loved one that they've lost. So it's about asking that very personal question. Now, we don't like asking personal questions, but when we go to the doctor, we expect the doctor to find out everything that's wrong with us, don't we? I've been going to the doctor the last 3 months. I've had some ailments there that I'm not happy with. And I'm saying, Doc, find out what's going wrong with you. And sometimes you have to tell the doctor, this, that, and the other. But, when you go to a doctor or when you go to someone, when you have some close friends, you ask the question if you suspect that suicide is an issue. And so it's important. Improvement following a suicidal crisis means that the risk is over, and the fact is that most suicides occur within about 3 months following the beginning of improvement, when the individual has the ability to put their morbid thoughts and feelings into effect. Suicide is inherited or runs in the family. The fact is that suicide is an individual pattern, and suicide is a behaviour. I was at a presentation last night at Griffith University where one of Australia's leading suicidologists, Professor Diego De Leo, who I trained under, is leaving and going back to Italy because sadly he's not well. But he was talking about this issue, and basically, I think it relates to the next question. Sorry. Anyhow, I'll finish with the AO's question. And he overtly, this is a man with many years of training, and indicated a lot of the media and a lot of people would say that everybody that's suicidal has a mental health issue. A high proportion of people are depressed, and some people do have mental health issues, but not all suicidal individuals do have a mental health issue. Some people have, because you look at the farmers that are going out, that are struggling in this country. It's amazing to see the reports on Lateline. You look at other sections of the community, the stresses that people are going under, people losing their homes, people losing jobs. Everywhere, every time you turn the television, you hear of Holden retrenching, umpteen dozen people. These other car companies, people are getting retrenched left, right, and centre. We're talking about FIFOs, we're talking about miners, and Jared could talk better than this on this point of mine. He's written a book about FIFOs, and I think you've got a couple of books out there somewhere, Jared. Yeah. If you have somebody there, the man at the back's got one, he's holding it up. So if you have somebody, I have a son that was a FIFO, and I used to be concerned for him. He went from here, he had 4 kiddies under 5, he travelled for 4 weeks all the way to Perth, got another plane to Karratha, and then spent all day travelling, and then we get 1 week off to come home. And he'd come home, try to have a rest, but the demands of his wife and his family also pulled on that. And there's an extremely high rate of FIFOs, which is fly-in, fly-out workers in our society. And the impact of FIFOs, a lot of them, because of the mining boom is collapsing, they're losing their jobs. It was great to have a wage where you're getting $200,000, $300,000 a year. You'd buy the boat and that big expensive house, but when you haven't got that job, how are you going to pay for it? So all those sort of issues have been faced. So suicide is neither a rich man's disease nor a poor man's curse. Suicide is very democratic and represented across all levels of society. So I was talking before about that. Studies of hundreds of genuine suicide notes indicate that although a person is extremely unhappy, they are not necessarily mentally ill.